Welcome back to my channel, y'all. It's your girl Lynn with Lynn Biz. Hello, Biz family. So your girl is excited. I have been scourging the YouTube, and I found a couple of more people that really interest me for some really good horror or scary, reactions and whatnot. So this one here is by YouTuber Darkness Prevails. I'll have his information in the description bar. But yeah, if you see it, y'all, do y'all see it? Do y'all see it? For all y'all wandering peoples who like to wander and explore the forest, we have four forests. We have some creepy things about to get going. Y'all read the title. Let's get into it. And yes, I did say in my other video that I have good news for you. I'm gonna have to tell you at the end of the video. I want y'all to watch the whole damn video. So let's get into this video because I'm pretty excited. I did not see any of it. I did not cheat. I promise you guys, I did not even look. I was just like winging through, and I was like, any minute, that one's the one. Okay, no, but yeah, I did not cheat. I want to experience it just like you. Here goes. Let's get into it.
Let's begin.
I'm excited.
I will never walk alone in the woods. From Anonymous. I was never scared to explore the woods alone as a kid. I would actually get a little excited if there were creepy sounds like cracking branches or rustling of the leaves. It gave my imagination a chance to grow. In 1984, as a 13-year-old boy, I didn't spend my time in front of a computer or playing video games. The smartphone would just be a thing of our imaginations back then. I spent my days exploring and creating new worlds in the fields and forests near my southern Arkansas home. Sometimes I'd invite my best friend, but most days I was alone. My dad traveled for work and was gone for weeks at a time, while my mom was always busy at home doing housework and taking care of my baby sister. I guess the best place to start is Memorial Weekend. My mom was in the hospital with some complications from giving birth to my baby sister. My dad had not made it back home from his last trip yet, so I stayed at my best friend Randy's house for a few days. He only lived about a mile down the gravel road from our house. I had a vivid imagination, but Randy, well, let's just say he liked to venture into the darkest areas of fantasy. He was always trying to find new ways to scare the heck out of me. Randy had a fascination with heavy metal and the occult. He was also curious about ghosts and talking to the dead.
Not about that life.
That evening after dinner, he had this bright idea to have a seance in an old Civil War-era cemetery that was in the woods halfway between my house and his. I'm sure he had no idea what he was doing, and was making it up along the way. He swiped a couple of candles from his mom's cupboard, and an aluminum pie pan, and we headed down the road. We arrived at the cemetery a little after noon. The ground was soggy from a morning rain shower, and the sky was overcast. It was a nice setting for two young boys who wanted to scare themselves. We decided on a spot in front of a small cracked headstone that read Reginald Young, 1846 to 1863. It didn't say whether the young man was a soldier or not,
He died
but
young.
by the math, he was 17 when he died. Randy told me that we needed to prick our fingers and drip blood into the pan as an offering to the spirits. So he pulled out his pocket knife, and we both pricked our fingers with the tip of the tiny knife. After we both had dripped a few drops of blood into the pan, Randy held it over one of the candles until it began to bubble. As we sat there, watching that bit of blood cook, Randy spoke to Reginald out loud, asking him to let us know if he was there. We waited quietly for a couple of minutes, and even though I was skeptical and a little amused, I was also slightly on edge, because we were doing something that I was always taught was wrong and dangerous. Suddenly, there was a loud clap of thunder that made Randy drop the pan. It was followed by a deep rolling roar that sounded to me like an angry spirit whispering, We didn't give that horrible sound a second thought. Randy had dropped the pan, and we were both on our feet in seconds, breaking into a dead run through the woods. I've no idea why we didn't head back to the road. I guess we were so scared, we just weren't thinking clearly. I ran for what only seemed like minutes, when I finally calmed myself. I bent over and put my hands on my knees to catch my breath. I started to laugh when I realized how ridiculous we both were. However, when I turned to say as much to Randy, he was not behind me. I looked around and I did not find him anywhere. I yelled for him, Randy! But the only sound I heard was the creaking of branches. We must have gotten separated. I was sure he had been right behind me. The only thing I could do was to head back to his house and make sure he made it home. I calmly started walking in the direction I thought we'd come from, back towards the road. But I walked and started to realize that none of my surroundings were familiar. No one had ever taught me to just stay in one place and wait. I had played in the woods my whole life. I was sure I'd find my way out. As evening approached, more rain moved in. I was starting to get cold because I was soaked clean to my skin. I topped a small hill, hoping to figure out where I was. There I spotted an old abandoned car. It was rusty and one of the doors was missing. The seats were shredded and springs were sticking out in places. The roof was all dinted up, but it didn't seem to be leaking, so I crawled in and curled up in the back seat and tried to get warm. At some point, I dozed off. I guess all the excitement and stress of realizing I was lost had worn me out. I'm not sure what woke me, but I was suddenly aware of a horrible smell. It was like a skunk, but mixed with rotting meat. I sat up and covered my nose. I was a little scared to investigate, unsure of what I would encounter, but I slowly climbed out of the car to look around. It was quite dark by then. I didn't see anything in the near vicinity, but as I slowly regained my senses, I could hear a sound coming from somewhere through the trees. It sounded like one step followed by a dragging sound, and then another step.
Motherfucker, run.
It kept repeating and seemed to be getting closer. I was cold and tired, and I'd already been through a lot. The tough kid in me had pretty much vanished at this point. I looked around for a place to hide. The car was too open with the broken door and busted windows, and it was getting too dark to run. Not to mention I was scared I would run into whatever that was in the woods. So I did something that I probably wouldn't have under any other circumstance. I walked around to the trunk of the car, and I tested it to see if I could get it open. Luckily, the latch had been busted long ago. I lifted it up and carefully crawled inside. I slowly lowered the lid and waited. The smell of mildew and rust was strong, but not as strong as the horrible smell coming from the outside of the car. I lay there still as I could be, and I listened. The sound of whatever was coming through the woods had stopped. I waited a few more minutes and began to lift the trunk slowly. As I held it open, just enough to almost stick my head out, I heard it again. This time, it was closer. maybe even as close as the front of the car. I lowered the lid quietly and tried to hold my breath. It occurred to me that it could be Randy. Maybe he had finally caught up to me. But why did he smell so awful? It would be safer to wait and listen than to try to take a peek. So I lay there and listened to the step sound approaching. My heart was already racing, but just when I thought I couldn't be more scared, a loud thud, like a huge fist, hit the top of the car. Almost instantly, the step was joined by a scratching sound like nails on a chalkboard. That scratching sound was coming right across the top of the car and headed for the trunk. The scratching started to sound more like knives on a glass window and grew louder and louder. Just when the sound was right above me, it quickly stopped. I listened, trying to intensify my hearing with sheer willpower, but there was nothing. I could hear no scratching, no steps, no crickets or branches blowing in the wind. All I could hear was my heart pounding. The hairs on the back of my neck felt as if they were crawling, and I was overwhelmed with the feeling that someone was looking at me. The only thing I could see from inside that trunk was the light coming from the hole where the latch should have been. As I fixed my eyes on that light, something moved in front of it. I raised up just a hair, and my eyes strained to adjust. I realized there was an eye looking back at me. It didn't look human. Those eyes were red and bloodshot, and the pupils were elongated. I threw my body back into the trunk as far as I could go, and I let out a scream so loud it temporarily deafened me. It felt like a dream, where you scream at the top of your lungs but nothing comes out. My screams were silenced for a moment as a thud hit the trunk so hard that the whole car bounced. As I started to scream again, I could hear something screaming with me, or it may have been a roar. It was hard to tell. The lid to the trunk caved in, but not enough to touch me. My screams were replaced by cries, and I felt as if I was going to drown in my own tears, when I realized that the banging and bouncing had stopped. As the seconds trickled into minutes, I waited with sobs that turned into hiccups, and eventually, I fell into an exhausted sleep. I am not sure how long it was until my eyes opened again, but I do remember the first sound I heard. I heard my father's voice yelling my name. I slowly opened my swollen eyes and cleared the fog from my mind. My heart raced again, but this time with relief and excitement. I started to yell and bang on the lid of the trunk as loud and hard as I could. It took them another hour to get me out of that trunk. It had been caved in from the outside and had gotten stuck. No one could figure out how I got in there, or how it had gotten caved in.
Right.
After I told them my story, they searched the area, but they could not find any signs that anyone had been in the area. Even my footprints had been washed away. The car had a few branches lying on it from the rainstorm the evening before, and still looked like it had been there for years. But one thing was different. There were grooves in the ground where it looked like the car had been moved a few inches. Randy was safe. He was with my dad when he and the search party found me that day. He was the one that found them, and the hoof prints. These bizarre prints made a complete circle around the car. Of course, the adults credited this to the livestock that had gotten loose during the rainstorm, but Randy and I had other suspicions.
No.
I miss the peace and adventure that I used to find in the forest. I will treasure those youthful memories. However, even as an adult, I still have nightmares about that night. On many nights, that red bloodshot eye is the last thing I see before I wake from these horrible dreams. I'll never try to contact the dead again, or spend rainy days in the cemetery. But most of all, I'll never walk in the woods alone. The Keeper of the Forest Track,
yeah, that was
from
interesting.
Lynn's son.
That was interesting.
This story was told to me by my dad a few summers ago, when I asked if he knew anyone who had experienced anything supernatural. I'm writing this from memory, so some details might be missing, as I didn't experience any of this myself. As a kid, my dad used to live on a farm, which was located pretty close to my current home. Leading to the house, there was about a kilometer-long track that went through the forest. One autumn day, when my dad was around 6 to 7 years old, he was wandering along the track away from the house, when, in the midway, a pitch-black creature appeared, approximately 100 meters before him. The being was the same size as an adult, completely black, and its body resembled that of the Grog from the Finnish stories called the Moomins. The legs, nose, and mouth were not visible, but it did have black and round, empty eye sockets, with a grayish color surrounding them. The creature didn't make any sound, it just stared, and it only moved if you looked away or moved yourself. It would stop immediately if you looked straight at it. Horrified, my dad stared at it for a while, before sprinting back home. According to him, the creature followed at jogging speed, with these weird bouncing hops. But before reaching the house, the thing would disappear. Dad never told anyone, because he felt like no one would believe him. This incident wasn't the last one, as the creature would frequently appear as my dad walked along that path. As soon as there was only about 10 meters in between him and the creature, Dad would make his escape, and as always, the creature would be gone just before he made it home. Soon after all this had started, he wouldn't go near that trail, unless it was absolutely necessary, and fortunately, the school was the opposite direction. One day his father asked him to chop some firewood near the track. Dad told me how scared he was the whole time, and how he kept glancing around as he was hacking at the logs. Just for a few seconds he lowered his gaze, and as he looked back up, the very same pitch-black creature was right in front of him, staring straight at my dad. He dropped the axe and ran as fast as he could, without daring to look back. Just as my dad was starting to doubt himself, he overheard the boy from the nearby farm telling people at school about how he was one day throwing some rocks against a barn's wall, when from around the corner, a black creature appeared. The boy was startled, and by instinct he threw a rock at it, which caused it to disappear. Dad never told this boy about his experiences, and to this day, that boy doesn't know that my dad had seen the same creature. Even though the being didn't make an appearance that fall and winter, and actually ever since, he told me he was terrified of encountering it again on the path for many years to come. He was left with some trauma. He told me how some holes in a carriage reminded him of the creature's eyes, and that made him scared in that very moment. On another occasion, a picture in a newspaper of a sniper made him anxious because the rifleman loosely resembled the black being on the road. When my dad first saw the picture of the Grog, he said Tove Jansson, the creator of the Moomins, sure as heck knew what a boogeyman looks like. For years, I wondered what he meant by that. But now, I know.
Ooh, y'all. That was kind of interesting. That was really kind of interesting. Let me know in the comment section which one you all, felt the most like leery about. Honestly, for me was more of the first one. The second one reminded me of, I saw I can't remember if it was a video or something called Don't Look Away. If you look away and turn back, he's going to appear. So it kind of sort of reminded me of that. Not too scary, more like, okay, is it something with his father? But anyway, y'all, thank y'all so much for watching. The good news is, y'all, the good news is, let's do drum roll, please. Y'all, your girl got herself a gaming channel. Before I break it down, the reason behind the gaming channel is I love, like, when I say I love playing games. Like, I don't do anything else. I love me some games. Mobile games, PS2, PS3, Xbox, whatever. I love me some games. So, I got it up. I haven't yet put anything on it because I'm searching through for a good one. I'm looking for a good one to share, to do a game together. So won't y'all give me some love? Go over there, subscribe, leave me a comment. Let's get that going, y'all. Let's get that going. My gaming channel will be in also the description box. So yeah, your girl got herself a gaming channel. I've been working on it. I figure, what else do I have to do? You know what I'm saying? I've been playing games so long. I mean, I go back to freaking Nintendo 60. You know what I'm saying? The Sega. Y'all don't know about that. If y'all know about the Genesis, y'all hit me up in the comment with the game emoji. But anyway, y'all, let's. That was those good old days. You know. Them 80s and early 90s babies and all that. Who knows about that? But anyway, y'all, love y'all all. Thank y'all for watching. Until the next one, stay beautiful, stay blessed. Peace.